So, good morning, everyone. It is Sunday, the 13th of July, 2025. Welcome to the Journey Onward. This is a very informal project that I'm planning to try to do fairly regularly. Its purpose essentially is to offer some thoughts, ideas, perspectives on things that I've noticed in my own life. I have to admit, I don't know what's going to come out of this. I don't know whether there will be positive or negative things, but I do know that I have been doing personal video journals for quite a while, and I've found that a lot of what I've captured in the past has proven to be beneficial in some way or another. So I thought, why not go ahead and give it a go? I do plan to provide confidentiality regarding who I'm talking about, unless it obviously needs to be brought up. And I'm interested in anything you want to hear about. So if there are topics, thoughts, ideas, or things that you're thinking about in relation to any aspect of your life, I'd be happy to find out more and contribute perhaps my perspective on your thoughts. So this is the premiere episode. As I mentioned, I'm not doing a whole lot of flashy production on this piece because I don't think it really needs it. Consider this my diary that is coming out of an old, lined book, and what I'm observing. So what I wanted to share today is basically an update. For those of you who aren't aware, I made a decision about a month and a half ago that I would be relocating after, I have to think about this, well, since 1989, back to my home town. Just a very brief outline, I left my small town of Fort Hancock in 1989, and it was August or September of 1989 to start my undergraduate degree in San Antonio. I was in San Antonio for about 5 years, then eventually ended up in Austin. I ended up living in Austin, various parts of Austin, for over 26 years, and then moved back to San Antonio, particularly to lead a group of advocates, patient advocates, at a sexual health and wellness center. That work experience, was one of the best ones I had in my life. And then about a month and a half ago, I was at home, and there was an emergency with one of my parents. They're fine, and there were no sort of repercussions on the situation that happened, but it made me realize, along with some guidance from another family member, that it was time for me to come home. I wanted to share that I do know that there are people who make the choice not to return to their homes, usually because their family members, their parents, parents of choice, parents of birth, are already prepared for how they will be taken care of. For me, it was never a question that I would return. I don't know if that's a Latino thing, a Mexican American thing, but it seemed that even when I left, that I would be taking care of one, if not both, of my parents. And because I just feel it's the right thing to do, it was the way that I was raised. But I do want to honor and respect and acknowledge those who make a choice to, allow their parents to take care of themselves or to find support in other ways. I realize that this is a huge decision. A lot of people just want to continue in their careers with their own families, doing their own things. This is not right or wrong for you. It's just, I know what's right for me. So I wanted to put that out of the way. This is not a criticism for people that do not choose to caregive. A little bit about my parents. So they were born and raised here in this little town. And they were married here, and they've lived here their entire lives. They've never lived in any other place. My father was born in 1942. My mother was born in 1945. And strangely enough, they pretty much grew up right across the street from each other. In fact, both of the homes are still standing. And so I'll get into the story of how they met and so on and so forth in the future. But my dad spent 41 and almost 42 years as a machine operator for initially it was the Southern Pacific Railroad, got shifted over. And my mother worked in various administrative roles for the school district, for the Water Improvement Board, and then she ended up being a postal carrier for the rural areas. My town of Fort Hancock is about an hour east of El Paso, Texas. So we're on the very, 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 very far western side of the state. El Paso sits kind of right at the nexus of northeastern Mexico, sort of the center of New Mexico, and of course the westernmost point of Texas. It's a very small town. When I left here, I believe it was right above 1,000 residents. I don't know what the population count is now. It has grown quite a bit. So I would say probably they're in the 14 to 1500s. Primarily rural, and there are a few families that own very large farms in the area. The primary employers in this town are the school district, the border patrol, and the highway department. And so most people that derive their income in this area do so in one of those three ways. Also, the population from a racial and ethnic perspective is, I would say, 96 to 97% Mexican in terms of their ethnicity. I would say probably 50% of them are U.S. citizens. Not to put labels on anyone, but I would say that most of them consider themselves Mexican American or Latino. Latino tends to, in my perspective, in my lived experience, to be more popular in more urban areas, and particularly on the West Coast and on the East Coast. And then the remaining 50-ish% are basically either undocumented individuals or naturalized citizens. And so the vast majority are Mexican descent. I left this town, I think, with a desire not to ever return. Because for me, I wanted something different. I wanted to explore new things and do different things. And I ended up leaving, and I think I had I've had a fascinating life up to this point. And it wasn't until at this point now, I would say at least about 16 years ago, I left the business community after I had worked for the state of Texas and for a quasi-federal agency and for several smaller companies to actually work with people in healthcare. And that's where I really found a lot of healing for myself and a lot of healing for others. Um, but the primary purpose of me recording this is to kind of talk about what it's like when you have to make that shift, when you decide you're going to basically refocus. And the way I framed it all is that I have I left my primary sort of focus of building my career, or at least making it not my priority, and to focus on being a caregiver for my parents. They're doing pretty well health-wise, but they are in their 80s now, and they're starting to struggle quite a bit. It's not unlike what you will probably encounter with other people in this situation. Technology has changed quite a bit. Things move much more quickly, and they're just the natural aspects of aging. There's illnesses that happen, energy levels drop as we get older. I'm 54 years old, and as we get older, it just becomes more difficult to do things. So I would say it was not an easy choice for me, in the sense that this was the time to do it. So I had to go through this process of grieving, letting go of what I had in my mind in terms of what my life would look like, and shift it over to what my life will look like. And it was, from a logistical, just physical perspective, incredibly difficult. I left one of the living spaces that I had finally created that had everything that I ever wanted it to be. I also sold, or am in the process of selling, most of the furniture that I took a lot of pride in selecting and using. My space was just ideal. My career was sort of in transition. I had completed my PhD. I completed it last year, and was sort of trying to find my place, and found some interesting challenges that I might kind of talk about in a future episode of this diary. But I also had 2 pets that I have had for many, many years, and there was a question about whether they would be coming home with me. Thankfully, they've been accepted and embraced by the family, and I am taking care of them and taking my responsibility of taking care of them. So, for those of you that aren't aware, pets can be incredibly powerful creatures that will help older people that are aging, to just have connection with, right? And so luckily I was able to bring my girls with me, but it was physically exhausting, because I spent more than 2 weeks carrying furniture downstairs, sorting through things, getting rid of things. I ended up leaving some stuff in storage and at a relative's, and in back in San Antonio, and also have a friend who offered to sell stuff that was worth considerable amounts of money. Most of my furniture, the only stuff I really kept other than my clothing and my pets and my technology, is things that were really important to me from a spiritual perspective, and my books. So I anticipated that I was really going to struggle with this experience. My primary concern is that one of the biggest challenges I've had as a person is my mental health. I am and have been on antidepressants, anxiety medication, for quite a few years. Yet it's very difficult for me sometimes to cope with different types of issues in my life, so I have very low resilience when it comes to some things. And I was really worried that coming into supporting my parents in a caregiving role, that this was going to be a challenge. But I've learned quite a bit in the last few years, and so I've been very present to my own feelings and my own thoughts. I've set boundaries, and for the most part, they've been honored. And I'm in this phase now of helping my parents to sort of reframe their living. I think it's important to just bring up that if you are older, if you've left home, right, and have been away from home for several years, you've established yourself, career-wise and otherwise, and then you go back home, the relationship dynamic should not and is not the same. When I left, I was a son, I was a boy, I was young, inexperienced, and was going to learn a lot, and I did. I learned a lot after I left. Coming back is a whole different story. In my case, because I was closeted, it was a challenge to live here as a boy. I had an extreme internalized homophobia that I had to deal with. Not only did I know what my sexual orientation was and that it wasn't acceptable, but I hated myself for it. Thankfully, I got the right kind of care and found the right kinds of support and the right kinds of people to come and embrace who I am. So as an adult, I've come back pretty much aware of who I am and having no shame around it, not being discreet about it, and just embracing my life as it is. And so that's one piece of it, but also coming back in and sort of helping your parents, in my situation, me helping my parents to reframe my relationship with them, that yes, I am their son. I always will be their son. There is a unique bond that exists between us, but my primary role here is to help them get through their life rather than for them to raise me. And often it's been feeling, and I've been told this, that, the roles do switch significantly so that the parent ends up sort of more in the role of the child, and the child ends up more in the role of the parent. And that's definitely something that I see. There have been no major conflicts. I think the only thing I've struggled with is that I do see my parents aging, and I see them aging fairly quickly. But it's just the natural things of hearing loss, for example. My father's always had hearing issues, but my mother now has them. And so I find myself at times needing to repeat things that I've said. And it can be frustrating, and it can be difficult for me to recalibrate that they can't hear. And I'm having hearing issues too, by the way. So it's a strange environment where we're asking each other to repeat, what we've said. But overall, it's been a really good adjustment. I'm now sort of in that phase of settling myself down. I have a room that I sleep in now and that I take care of my cats in. They're allowed to be in other parts of the house, but in the evenings they definitely stay in my area. They're basically trained, so they don't we don't have any accidents, pet accidents. They know where to go, and they're very loving creatures. And now I've set up my office space, and now it'll just be a matter of gradually bringing the rest of my things. I hope to have my library of books here soon, hopefully next couple of months. My furniture is a little more modern, I think, than my parents. And then we're also working together to set up a plan to take more responsibility for chores and things to do. Stuff like basically, you know, who's going to take out the trash, who's going to handle the vacuuming, who's going to clean the bathrooms. And I failed to mention that we live about an hour away from the only major city in the area, which is El Paso, which is where we go for our doctor's appointments, where we go for groceries, where we go for hospital care, medical care. And there are easier ways these days, as we all know, to get groceries, for example. And my parents are still doing it the old way. The old way meaning you walk into the store, you grab a basket, and you go through and pick up what you need. So to have them adjust to give me a list of things that they want so that I can transmit those electronically to the store and they can collect them all for me and have them ready for me just to pick up, it's a huge change for them. Electronic commerce, transmissions. My mother is very, very dedicated to visiting the post office every day, and she gets upset when she doesn't get her bills. Most of us do not get upset when we don't get our bills. It's like, well, they didn't meet their obligations, right? And so gotta wait for that to happen. So I've actually seen her express anger that when the bills come in late, because she's ready to pay them. And so my sister and I just yesterday had a quick conversation with her and told her, you know, if we got all your accounts available online, we could tell you in an instant whether your bill's due and how much you owe and when you need to mail it and what your balance is and that sort of thing. So there's just a lot of change. We're also going through a process of, I forget the name of the individual that has a really popular show. She teaches people essentially how to live simply. And it's sort of an extreme form of minimalism where she, you know, you don't wear it, you don't use it, you get rid of it. It's not the, oh, I may need it at some point kind of philosophy. It's the, I haven't touched it in more than, you know, a week, so it's out the door. And so this home where my parents have lived now for, well, since 1988 actually. I'm not going to calculate it in my head because it's too early and I haven't had enough coffee. But there's a lot to do. So some of the things that I learned to do while I was away from home, and then certainly in this move, I had to get rid of a lot of things, decide what I was doing with a lot of things. I'm now putting primarily my mother through that process. My father really doesn't get involved in stuff like that. But I'm looking forward to this. There are some surprising signs that I'm adjusting better than I anticipated. I lost 12 pounds, I think. The first time I weighed myself was, I think it was July 5th. And I had been working for at least 4 years to get under 200 pounds. And I was at 198. I'm at 199. I'm at 198 now. And what I couldn't do in 4 years in my own space by myself, I've been able to do here. My blood pressure levels are strangely much lower here. And I'm struggling with acknowledging that maybe it's because I'm surrounded by family and I'm not alone. Maybe it's because I feel supported, not just in a financial way, but in a lot of other ways. I feel just different, better. I sleep better. So there are some things that have happened to me that I didn't really expect or anticipate. And so now I'm reconnecting with those that continue and will continue to be part of my life moving forward. Friends, family, coworkers, former coworkers, and because I intend to continue to prepare myself to deliver training through the Body Electric School, I also intend to up my gay men's coaching practice. I also intend to conduct some research. As I mentioned, I have a recent opportunity that I found out is a bigger deal than I thought it was going to be, with a very well-known university on the East Coast. I will be doing qualitative interviews as part of a project of theirs. And at some point, embracing other aspects of things that I'm doing. Before I left, I was trying to reach a point in my life where I was essentially creating multiple revenue streams. What that means on a most basic level is that you do a lot of little jobs basically on a regular basis. And you have a diverse set of businesses or things that you do for people in order to generate income on a regular basis. And so I had all of those ready to go. I just was having difficulty reaching that point of kickstarting those. So I have all those resources now. And then there's some other things that I'm thinking of. The most important thing that everyone has shared with me is self-care. The one person I probably heard that most clearly from was an uncle of mine who said, even if you don't feel like you need it, you need to make sure and take care of yourself on a regular basis. All of my family, for the most part, said, if you need to travel for a week or two and you need someone to stay with your parents, you let us know. We'll come and stay with them. We'll come and visit them while you're gone. And they've stepped up in multiple ways. So I feel really blessed with that. And I think I'm going to end with people telling me this is going to be the most difficult thing that you've done in your life. But it also has some of the most beautiful gifts. And I believe that. My mother was caregiver to so many other people. But she didn't take care of herself. Self-care was not something that was a piece. And I see the result of that. I see the result of her struggles because she didn't really focus on self-care. I want to make sure that I do that. So thank you so much for watching this episode. I hope you're finding some of the stuff on here helpful or valuable. I've got other stuff planned here, but this was more sort of like a personal diary thing. And so I'm going to be hopefully generating these pretty regularly, giving you updates on things. Anyway, join me on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram. Check out my websites. And certainly if you're in the academic field and you need someone to support you on a qualitative research project, please know that I'm available. And or if you are someone who would like to take on a coach, basically a life coach, I will make myself available. And if you just want to visit, just let me know. Love to you all. Have a wonderful day. Thank you for joining me. Until next time.